Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us today in this talk with Dr. Ebrahim Alareqi. Dr. Ebrahim Alareqi has long experience in machine learning. In the past, he was with Volvo Research and Development, and we hosted him in one of the lectures in the machine learning course at the University of Jordan, where he talked about autonomous cars and the technology used in autonomous cars. Recently, he moved to Incorta and they started applying machine learning for business. So we are happy to have him today and happy to hear from him about business applications in using large language models. So thank you, Dr. Ibrahim, and thank you for making this possible because of the time difference between Amman and California, which is 11 hours.
Yes.
So we are happy to have you here, and the mic is yours, and let's start.
Thank you so much, Dr. Muhammad. And thanks you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak to the students, about what we do actually in the field. And subhanAllah, I remember when I was a student myself a few years ago, um, really what shaped my mind and what shaped, my understanding of the industry and what's out there was these alumni or students who would come back to campus and share their experience. And wallah, it's very important that we know what's out there and how the industry is going, because this makes us more motivated to, like, the students make the students more motivated to go and study and deepen their understanding about topics. They might, I mean, it might seem that these topics are irrelevant or very hypothetical, but in reality it's real. And the thing is, things are developing, as you know, guys, very, very, very fast, especially in the generative AI field. And having someone from the industry explaining it becomes easy to navigate that very complex space. But before I go, I remember coming to your university before, and I talked about autonomous driving when I was working for Volvo. So I'm going to talk a little bit about myself, my background. So I'm originally from Yemen, born and raised in Saudi. My father used to work there, and then we moved to Sana'a. And then in 2011, during the revolution in Yemen, I traveled to America 2011, and since then I've been here, going back and forth, of course, but been here. Did my undergrad, bachelor's, and master's in computer science and PhD in computer science as well. Been to different universities: Jamiat al-Ulum al-Technology, University of Science and Technology in Sana'a, and also Jackson State University in America, and also recently finished my MBA from University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign. Worked for different companies, as you can see, the company called School City, Extrava, where we did a lot of machine learning modeling for a small device that you put on the baby's clothes, and it's able to monitor the baby's behavior, walking, standing, sleeping, breathing, all of that stuff. And it was basically a classification model that we built from these triaxial accelerometer that comes from the device. Worked for School City. It's a very nice startup where they do basically online education or online tests. And my job is to build these models that determines the level of the student while they're working on their tests. It presents the best answers for them, or the best next question for them. Worked for Volvo for some times, and that's what Dr. Muhammad is referring to. When I met you last year, I was at Volvo. I worked there actually for 5 years at Volvo. I was in the autonomous drive function, and then built. I was the leading engineer for the data science platform for Incorta. Sorry, for Volvo. You see also Google Cloud. If you ever have taken machine learning test from Google, which is the professional machine learning engineer certification from Google. I'm I'm one of the people that writes the question for that. So I'm not gonna give you the answers, but if you need any advice how to study that exam, I'll be more than happy to support you in that. And recently I moved to Incorta, Incorta is an end-to-end data management and analytics platform. I'm the director of generative AI in the company, and we serve a lot of clients like Apple, HR, and also Netflix, Broadcom, Comcast, and in Saudi, a lot of the ministries, وزارات, like وزارة العدل, وزارة الحج, and you can imagine like petabytes of data that needs to be managed and apply, generative AI on the top. And this is inshallah what we're going to be talking about today. I was part of SciNet, which is one of the biggest infrastructure for high performance computing. It's like a supercomputing conference that happens every year. I'm part of their infrastructure team. Yeah, I like hiking, biking, and I have 4 kids, alhamdulillah. And any personal question, I'll be more than happy to answer. If you look here, you see this black hole. If you remember back in the days when it was the first time for humanity to come up with the actual image of an actual black hole, and it was the national news. Alhamdulillah, my team and I, when we were working for Exceed, which is the Extreme Science and Engineering Discovery Environment from NSF, we were the team that was under for the infrastructure to do this computation. Okay, so what I will cover today, and please, if you have questions, make this a very interactive session. If you have a question, please interrupt me, raise your hand, or just unmute and talk. I can see like we have about 8 people or 7 people beside me and Dr. Muhammad. So please unmute and just ask your question. That's absolutely fine. I want it to be interactive, and ask a question as you go. Just give me 1 second, please. Okay. So what we're going to cover today is inshallah generative AI value and tools. What are the tools out there? What's the value? Uh, before I go in, how familiar are you guys with LLMs? Have you worked with LLMs? Do you understand the concepts of them? Was this covered in a lecture? So I know how deep I can go with each one of them. Dr. Muhammad or anyone else?
Now regarding LLMs, now students sometimes they use large language models in their graduation project. But regarding the architecture of LLMs and having transformers and attention layers, this is not covered in courses in the undergrad or at the master's level. So students may not be available. Some of the attendees, actually students, some of them are professionals. But regarding the students, some of them may not be familiar with the LLMs in general and with the LLMs architecture. So it's
Okay,
good
no,
if we go over them actually.
I will be more than happy, inshallah. I'll be more than happy to go over it. Uh, and then again, if you have any question, you can stop me, ask so that it's easy for me to know the direction of where we need to go. Okay, and then after I explain a little bit about LLMs, and I'll deep dive into them from like a bird's eye view, not very specific about like the mathematical formulas and all of that. And then I'll talk about what's like why LLMs, why the big fuss about LLMs versus the traditional machine learning applications. We've been building models, we've been deploying them. What's the deal with LLMs? Why LLMs are actually overtaking even the machine learning applications? And at the end, inshallah, I'll try to end with how enterprises are applying LLMs nowadays, and I'll take Incorta as an example. Okay, any questions so far? No. Okay, and the goal is for us to kind of like familiarize ourselves as we go. Hopefully, by the end of this lecture, you'll be able to understand what a RAG is. People talk about agents. What are agents? What is fine tuning of an LLM? How is that related to LLMs? You will understand what a foundational model is. You'll understand the open source platforms, an open source code base like Hugging Face and others. You'll understand what's an instruction data set and many other, concepts and techniques. Also, you will build a meaningful intuition for what LLM can do and what it cannot do for the real world, since we're going to be talking about some real use cases. And at the end, also, inshallah, I'll share some resources that all of you can benefit and further your understanding. Because as you know, that 45 minutes or an hour is not enough to cover everything in that space. I personally spend about an hour and a half every day just reading papers and updating myself in the field. And as you know, it's a very changing field. Every other week, we get a model that is released, and it's easy to get caught into like what's the latest and what's going out there. But the economic value, before we go into like how important this for economies around the world. Generative AI is said by McKinsey that it will impact productivity that could add to trillions of dollars. So we're not talking about millions, we're not talking about billions, we're talking about trillions of dollars of value of global economy. And that's not me, that's McKinsey. It's one of the biggest consulting firm in the world. And we've already seen a lot of companies, going forward. If you're familiar with what's was happening in Saudi last week, and I was there, Leap conference, millions and billions of dollars actually was deployed last week, just across from you, like very close from Jordan, for generative AI, Grok, building data centers and a huge investment in Saudi. In America, I don't know if you saw what the president here was talking, like he brought all these big people from Oracle, which my manager used to report to, Larry Ellison, and many others, like investors, and they deployed about $500 billion for infrastructure, or at least they committed $500 billion. So it's real. It's like, yes, a lot of hype, but still the commitment and the money that is deployed is real. So within a year or two, uh, I don't see why we're not spending $1 trillion in that space. By 2022, 2026, and most of you will be graduates by that time, 80% of enterprises, means companies, whether it's a food company, whether it's a clothing company, any company that uses technology, they will have 80% of these companies by the beginning of next year, yani within a year, they will somehow deploy a generative AI application, and they need people that build these applications for them. Um, it'll be either models, it'll be APIs, it'll be applications on the top of generative AI, and that's what we're going to be talking about. Just to show you an example, and this is coming from Gartner, by the way. And this just a year ago or 2 years ago, only 5% of companies started to adapt generative AI. I have a friend, her name is May Habib. May has a company called Writer. She's the CEO. She's actually from Lebanon. And May, mashallah, she has raised millions and millions of dollars for her company. But she posted a few weeks ago about how a company, a Fortune 10 company, Fortune 10, you have Fortune 500, one of the Fortune 10, one of the biggest 10 companies in the world. This company is spending $3 million a month just for API calls to LLMs. Yeah, say ChatGPT or Gemini, or they spend about $3 million for experimenting without even a real use case. They're just trying, to do things. Let alone if this goes to production. That's why it's a big business. It's a lot of money. The reason I'm trying to tell you this is it's real. It's yani, back in 2023 years, a lot of hype, all of that. Now it's real. Companies are deploying these technologies. And I'm sure one of you is using one of these, hopefully not for your homework, if you're in school, but one of you is using one of these tools, whether it's Perplexity for research, ChatGPT for day-to-day job, or maybe, GPT for Gemini, or even if you're in production, and Sora and other systems out there for generative multi-model. And I'll talk about my multi-model as well. So it started to impact our real life. Yani back in the days, you needed a translator to translate an important document for you. Now you don't really need that. Back in the days, you needed someone to, before you send the letter of recommendation, probably gonna hire a professional to proofread it for you. Not anymore. ChatGPT can do that for you. So it's impacting our daily life on a personal level. Not only that, on a professional level, a lot of companies now heavily rely on these tools to do, for example, automated marketing, marketing research, and so on. And since then, so many models have came out. Some models, you input a text to it and it gives you a text back. Some models, you give it a text and it gives you a video, an image back. Some models, you give it an image and then it gives you a text back. And different models, right? Image to 3D if you're in construction, or spatial construction, image to 3D to video. And so you have this multi-model, image to code. It's big, especially on GitHub. They say that 30% last year, 35% of the code that was committed to GitHub was actually Gen AI or generative AI generated. It's not like human who wrote it. And of course, text to video, which is a big thing, and audio to text, and we'll show some examples as we go, inshallah. So let's define what's a large language model. So large language model, it's a large general purpose language models that can be pre-trained, and I'll explain each word that you see in blue, and then fine-tuned for a specific purpose. So number one, it's large, and I'll show you, I'll tell you why it's large. Why do we? So we used to have a lot of language models. We call them natural language processing models, NLP models, and these were small in numbers. Yani we take مثلا, let's say 1,000 PDFs or 1,000 PDF with, let's say, maybe a million, 3 million words, and train a small model to do specific tasks. مثلا في العربي مثلا in Arabic نبغى نعمل تشكيل. We want to do like the تشكيل for words. We bring the data set with a lot of تشكيل and we train that model, so now it's able to do تشكيل for us. For example, that's one example. Or مثلا sentiment or very specific task. Now, these large language models, they don't do one thing, they do multiple things. They do تشكيل, they do classification, they do sentiment analysis, all in one model. It's general purpose, it's large, and I'll show you how large it is, and it's pre-trained, meaning I do it once and I reuse the inference task for many times. Sometimes I need to fine tune it. I need it to focus on certain thing, but usually that's not the main issue with large language models. Also, there are large vision models that came out. They're called LVM, and I'll give you some examples of it. And there's something also called large multi-model model like GPT-4, where you're able to upload a picture and the model is able to describe that picture for you. Any questions so far? No questions? Okay. Moving on. So what can these LLMs do for us? The LLMs can do text classification. It can do question answering, as you can see from ChatGPT. If you have a large document and you want it to be summarized, it'll be able to do that. It does text generation if you give it a prompt and it writes that essay for you. And it's a subset of deep learning, right? So we have this big circle called AI. In that you have the machine learning, everything machine learning, where the machine learns from data. And then specifically you have deep learning. I don't have to extract all these features. It figures out these ones. And if you go even further, the LLMs, as we said, the natural language, large language models, and then that's a subset of the generative AI. And this has been evolving. If you are familiar with most of these LLMs, most of the natural language processing algorithms, we started with, ELSA back in 1967. By the way, deep learning and language modeling has been there since ever. It's just that now we have more compute, more data, and we're able to come up with all these models. But the pivot, like the most important moment was 2017 when Transformers came out. And then after that, BERT and GPT birth happened in 2018. But then the other big moment happened in 2022 when ChatGPT came out. And they did not even expect it to take that popularity. The reason is it was the first time for a company to open the model for public, a large language model for public. Plus, they allowed for data collection. People were able to ask questions when they fine-tuned it. They fine-tuned it in a way that it's not just finishing the sentence, but it's you give it a question and it finishes the sentence or the sentence with an answer for that question. And that was the ChatGPT moment, and of course so many other moments. Now, after these GPT became very hot, Andrej, who used to work for OpenAI and then Tesla, led the Tesla autonomous driving, and now he has his own thing. He tweeted back in 2013, 2023, sorry, after the ChatGPT moment, he said the hottest new programming language is English. And honestly, that this is becoming true every day, because now with English, you can, with natural language, with English, Arabic, whatever language you have, you'll be able to generate whether it's code, whether it's text, images, and so on. So it's a different mindset now. We're not just coding is not the only way to get things done. And we see this in a lot of apps nowadays. If you're someone who likes to learn languages like myself, the app called Duolingo now, um, it, because of LLMs now, it has more capabilities. Back in the days, when they built that app, they had you have to interact with buttons. You have to know exactly where to click. Now you have just you click on the voice and you start talking to it. Said, "Can you explain this answer to me? Can you role play with me?" And then in English accent, in American accent, in Indian accent, it'll do that for you. All of a sudden, all these capabilities became popular just because of natural language being able to deal with this dynamic user interface. Similarly with Instacart, back in the days, what we used to do is, if I want, Instacart is an app where it does delivery for people. So if you want to get some food, you need to know exactly in what category, and then you need to know which restaurant serve it. So many hops before you get to the food that you want. Now, with natural language, these um, these interfaces or UI became dynamic. Every time you ask a question, the whole interface, the whole UI change for you, and of course, it's powered by LLM. So today, I'll focus on Llama, but again, anything you can apply on any one of these. It could be, Mistral, it could be Grok, it could be anything. I'll just take one model called Llama, coming from Meta, which is Facebook. And Alhamdulillah, yani in Corta recently, we have a new hire who is our CMO, Chief Marketing Officer. She was actually, her name is Nuhariz from Egypt. She's actually the one that launched Llama, like the marketing campaign for Llama from Meta. So that's why I'm choosing Llama. And we also at Incorta, we choose Llama. But Llama is a large language model. So let me explain. People say large language. Ibrahim, you've been saying LLM, LLM. What are LLM? Let's take it from the beginning. LLMs are actually, when people say LLM, I want you to picture two things in your mind. We all are familiar with the file system of our computer, right? When I say LLM, just think about two files. A file called parameters and another file called runs.c. Just think about this, okay? One file has about 500 lines of code written in C to operate this file. يعني هو اللي بيشغل هذا الفايل. Okay? And the other file called parameters. What's inside parameters? If it's a large language model, in this case, we're talking about إيش? Llama 70B. تمام? And there are different flavors of it. But let's talk about 70B. 70B has about 140 gigabyte. طيب يا Ibrahim, what's inside this 140 gigabyte? Inside it are bunch of numbers. Think about it like this. Bunch of numbers, decimal numbers. يعني 2.1134 يعني decimal numbers. A big matrix. A big matrix, you know, that has bunch of numbers in it, and that's it. طيب يا Ibrahim, you want to tell me that these numbers have all the knowledge of the world? Whenever I ask question from ChatGPT, it gives me an answer. I say yes, and I'll show you how is that done. But when I say LLM, a model, LLM model, think about these two files. A file that runs this parameter file and the parameter file itself. طبعا you can download the 70 billion parameter on your computer. It's about maybe 8 gigabyte or 7 gigabyte, which is fine. But there's also another flavor, 13 and 70B. طبعا 70B is the biggest one. The bigger the model, the more questions you can ask, the more it knows about the world. تمام? But again, where do we get this file from? It's about 140 gigabyte. Each number is about 2 bytes, right? And you multiply it by 70. If it's 70B, it means that it's about 100 gigabyte. If it's 13B, then you can do the math. But that's pretty much what an LLM on my physical computer. Now, how did these two files come into existence? A lot of mathematical calculation, right? These numbers come, يعني 671 comes from a layer called embedding. There's a layer called key. There's a layer called query. There's a layer called value. There's a layer called embedding. I'm not going to go in details. If you want to go in details, I put the resource here and I'll share, inshallah, the slides with Dr. Muhammad. Go and click on three blue, one brown. They explain this in details. But I'll tell you what happened. They took a lot of data from the internet. They used an algorithm. In this case, it's called transformer. And they came up with this model, which is this model is basically the what? These two files that we're talking about. Or basically this one file, and this is the one that runs it, right? So this is exactly what happened. We take a bunch of data. This is the typical machine learning modeling, by the way. Bunch of data, run it through an algorithm, and then a file will be out. Basically data in the form of a matrix. Of course, a lot of transformation happens before we feed it into the algorithm. In this case, is transformer. And now you have a what? A file which we call weights that exactly like you see here, bunch of numbers in a big matrix. Any questions so far? So they say if you don't ask questions, it's one of two things. Either people who are listening have understood everything, which is great, or they understood nothing. So which part are you guys? Which one are you guys? I hope it's the
things are clear so far, Dr.
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. Okay. This was a conference that I attended, a picture that I took when Facebook released Llama 3. This was in the Bay Area. And they're actually releasing in a few days, in a few weeks, Llama 4, which is going to be even crazier. And and the reason I'm using Llama because Llama is an open source, meaning I'm able to get this file. You can download this file from Hugging Face. If you go here and download it, you'll be able to download this file and use it in your application. If you're building any software application, you can use this file to interact with. And I'll show you how can you build so many applications out of this file. Now, ChatGPT, you can't do this because this is closed source, even though the company called OpenAI, and shame on them. But they're not sharing that file, and that's how they're making a lot of money, because according to them, their model is better than anyone else. If you remember DeepSeek, and I'll talk about it inshallah today as well, if we still have time, they released this file. When they say open source, it's not really the code. Open source means open weights, yani the weights that come out of the model, they open it for public. But how did they make these weights? No, this is the real open source. Only few companies actually did it, and the model that they released it is not very good because again, remember trillions of dollars, and to do this process, it costs millions and millions of dollars in terms of compute. So let's look at this. So again, what happens? They take a chunk of the internet. In this case, they took about to produce llama, right? They took about, and this is the small llama. They took about 10 terabytes, okay, of text. This is everything. يعني Wikipedia's, any public text that you might think of. They took a chunk of the internet, put it in files, but they tried to make it diverse. يعني شوية biology, chemistry, whatever. They have about 6,000 GPUs running, with the algorithm, with the transformer, for about 12 days. It cost them about $2 million. This is Llama 2B. This is Llama 2, not 3, right? And then that file came out. And now when people say we're using Llama as our foundational model, this is pretty much what they're using. They're using the 140 gigabyte. And these numbers that I'm showing you now is for Llama 2. But for Llama 3, actually, it's about 600,000 NVIDIA GPUs that are running. Can you believe it? Here it's 6,000, it's 600,000 with H100, and the data is actually even bigger. But think about this file as the whole internet compress, and think about it as lossy compression. It's not like a perfect compression. It's a lossy compression compressed into 140 gigabyte. That is actually numbers. But somehow, whenever you ask it a question, as you can see, somehow, whatever you ask it a question, it's able to answer that question. Sometimes it answers with an image, if it's a multi-model. Sometimes it answers with a text. Sometimes it answers with 3D model, sometimes with the code, sometimes with audio, depends on how you train it. If you get out of this lecture with this idea, that's more important to me than anything else. Yani there is a file that I can download from the internet nowadays that has knowledge of the world that I can build application on the top of. That's to me the most important point in this lecture. طيب الآن we'll talk more about this file. Like, how did this happen? How did they make this file work for them? Again, we said it's a very expensive. When they say we trained a large language model, it means that they spent something between $2 million to $3 million. Some of you might say, طيب يعني Facebook, they spent $10 million ولا $20 million. Why would they open source it? That's a whole nother discussion. But at the end of the day, they care about the ecosystem. They don't care about the file itself. They want people to be dependent on their models when they release them. But about 10 to $20 million in terms of compute, plus all the engineering costs, all the research that goes into this, all the testing that goes into this. So it's a very expensive thing. So I don't see companies build their own models, except if they are like a very large company and they want to do like investments there. But usually it's the big companies like the Google of the world, the Meta of the world, the OpenAI of the world that train these models and release them to developers to build on the top of them. I'm not going to talk about transformers, but again, it's an architecture. It uses a lot of math, but if you were to go out of it, the more parameters you put in this architecture of this transformer, the more the model is smarter or has more knowledge of the world, and the more training data you give it, the more output you get into it. There's a lot of technicality, but this is like a very like I'm just simplifying here. I'm sure during your machine learning courses, you've learned about a lot of neural network, and this transformer is just one type of these neural network that is able to do this. So let's think about a small transformer, a small neural network uh, during inference. So we did the training. Now we want to try that file. So the file called parameters, it's here. The file is about a bunch of numbers. But remember the run.c. We want to use that run to do multiplication with the numbers inside this parameter. What happened is if you give it a sentence like cat sat on a, and then you feed it into the run.c, which has the architecture of the neural network that will be multiplied by our parameter about 140 gigabyte, it will do a lot of computation and come out with the next word, which is math. And this is the prediction that is happening. That's why when you look at ChatGPT, when you ask a question, you see it like spitting ish, word by word, tak, 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 tak. It's a prediction model. It takes each token and starts spitting these words out. And because of this small little thing, now the neural networks are able to write the Java code, can continue like tak, 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 continue the Java code, continue the review for Amazon product, continue the Wikipedia file for you. It start dreaming because it has now all the knowledge in the world compressed in this file. This file itself is not enough. We need to do what we call fine tuning or instruction fine tuning. So what did they did, and that's what ChatGPT people did, OpenAI did. They took about 100,000 question and answer pairs. So what's the country? What's the capital of Saudi? Riyadh. That's a pair. What's the capital of Sana'a of Yemen? Sana'a. What's the 2 times 2? Like all of these about 100,000 question and answer. They took the base model, which came out of here, right? They take the base model and they fine tune it with this 100,000 pair. And now somehow it was a pivotal moment for them. It was an amazing moment for them. The model is able to answer all the questions for them. That's why when you go to Hugging Face, you will see two models. You will see Llama 3, 8B or 70B or whatever, and you will see something else called Llama Instruct. Instruct is the one that you can use in your applications. You cannot use this one. This is the base model. You can fine tune it for you yourself, but this is the Instruct. This is the one that has the question and answer that was fine tuned on this data set. So when you download, actually download this, and that's what we use at our company. A lot of process. Sometimes, there's something called human in the loop. So basically, as we said, we take all the data, we do self-supervised learning, and now we have the Llama, the base model. And then it's not enough, right? We do supervised fine-tuning, which is with Instruct here, right? And now we have Llama Chat, which is Llama Instruct. But that's sometimes not enough. Yani, if you ask this model, can you teach me how to make a bomb? Unfortunately, it will answer you. So we want to put some fine tuning, we call it RLHF, which is reinforcement learning human feedback. And we put like a lot of restrictions. Hey, if the person asks you a question about this, don't answer or make the answer generic or so on. And that's what you are actually downloading. So these companies, they care about security as well. So they're not going to just release a model that can harm humanity. But again, it comes in different flavors. My advice to you as students, go ahead and download the 70B on your computer. Follow the steps that I'll send to you here. Download something called Olama and start playing with it. If you can run it on your laptop, it means that you have very good understanding. It might not be as smart in the answering as, for example, the big models that you cannot host in your computer, but at least you get the gist of how it looks like. So what we said, we took the chunk of the internet, just to summarize, chunk of the internet, we trained it, and then we put the question and answer, right? And this was about 100,000 question pair, and now we have this model. Summarize, we have the pre-training model and we have the fine-tuning model. For the Llama, what happened? It took them about a year to download the data, to get to get a cluster of 6,000 GPUs, to compress all the text into like this small model, and now we have the base model. The second thing is they fine-tuned it. They wrote, the label instruction question and answer. They hired a lot of people, the ma'am, to collect about 100K high quality Q&A. And that's where you call the assistant model. And that's the deployed. So when they say, oh, ChatGPT released a new model, doesn't necessarily mean they pre-trained everything from scratch. Sometimes they just, got better data. And that's why I said ChatGPT became one of the best models because they collected a lot of data from people, high quality data, question and answer, and they trained their model, they fine-tuned their model so that it serves more and more and more people. But again, as I said, go ahead and download. That's the best way for you to learn how these models work. Now I'll go a little bit theoretical. طيب يا Ibrahim, we release models after models after models. Why are we not solving the world problems? صح؟ يعني تخيل ال GPT-1 was about 117 million parameter. GPT-2 was 1.5 billion parameter. GPT-3 was 175 billion. And now they say we are actually in the trillion. We're scaling, but guess what? We didn't solve the AGI, which is the general artificial intelligence. That's why we started to see something new called the reasoning model, and that's probably when you heard about DeepSeek and others. We have the models. Actually, we've do you know, guys, that we have finished all the public data now? Yani, these big models that you see, GPT-4 and 5 and maybe 6, they have exhausted all the online data. خلاص يعني there's no more data to train on. They need to go to private data. They've scaled the compute like huge data centers. So what can we do? So comes the reasoning models, meaning before the model spits the next prediction, why not let it think for some time? And that's why we call it reasoning model, thinking model, before it gives me the final answer. And I advise all of you to go and take this course. It's a 1 hour course from Deep Learning AI. If you haven't taken any course from Deep Learning AI, I highly encourage you guys to go and take it. They have short courses, 1 hour. It gives you understanding, but I don't have time to explain what reasoning models do. But I'll give you a higher like in general, like what do they mean? A reasoning model is exactly the similar model, except that it does a lot of reinforcement learning. It thinks before it answers. If you go to ChatGPT today, like the regular model, and ask it, which is bigger, 9.9 or 9.1? Can somebody answer this question for me? Come on. What is bigger, 9.9 or 9.1?
No one want to answer.
No one answered. طبعا
Sure, it's
9.9.
9.9.
Of course, 9.9 is bigger than 9.1. But if you go today and ask what we call the one-shot models like GPT-4 or other GPT-4, it will tell you 9.1 is actually bigger than what? 9.9. Why? Because it's a prediction model. But if you use, for example, O1 or O3, which is the reasoning models that they released recently, or DeepSeek or Gemini 2.0, they will tell you no. It's actually 9.9 is bigger. And the reason why, because it thinks it before it gives you the final answer, it says, okay, let me try. If I add this to this, and it start reasoning about its answers. So this is the future now. This is what everybody is actually talking about. And that's why DeepSeek was a huge, huge success. Because number one, they open sourced it. And I have a friend, his name is Jihad Al-Ammar, he's from Saudi. He actually put a very nice illustration about how DeepSeek is going. But basically, that's exactly what it does. It's a reasoning model because we exhausted all of the data. We've trained all these models. These models kind of like hit a wall. They need to start thinking more and more before they, just like a human. صح؟ أنا لما أجيب لك, when I give you a question, you don't just answer immediately. No, you take some time, you solve it on a paper, and then you tell me the final answer. And that's what the models started to do right now. طيب, now we know what a model is. We have them in a small file or big file. I know how to interact with them. What value can I extract? Back in the days, who among you is a machine learning engineer? Who has built a machine learning model before? Just unmute and tell me, myself, me, ولا chat, ولا I want to see like.
Currently, I'm using the Assistant API from OpenAI.
Okay, now have you used a traditional machine learning model? Like, have you built a traditional machine learning, let's say a classifier, ولا image classification, or let's say sentiment analysis model? Okay, that's fine. But back in the days, I'm a machine learning engineer by training. Back in the days if we want to build a supervised learning model, it will take me about a month to get all the data. It'll take me about 3 months to try different models until I get like the right combination of parameters. And it'll take me about 3 months to deploy that model before my company can see a value of my work. So يعني, it takes about 7 months for a machine learning engineer to bring something meaningful to the company. But with these models now, a prompt-based AI, I can literally just prompt it with the data. I'll be able to specify the prompt, and this is where it takes a minute, sometimes an hour to perfect it, called prompt engineering, to perfect the perfect prompt so that it gives me the model within hours or probably days. I'll give you an example. When I was at Volvo, um, I was working with a research group. They came to me and they say, I was leading about 12 people in the company, and we have about 7 or 8 natural language NLP models, natural language models. One does sentiment analysis, one does cleaning, one does like different models. So the goal of the system that we built that has about 7 models is when the claim comes to the insurance. Volvo used to have an insurance arm. When the claim comes to the insurance, usually a human will go and read and say, okay, approve, or don't approve. It's a typical problem. they said, Ibrahim and your team, can you automate this? Alhamdulillah, when I came, it was already automated. So I was just maintaining it and make sure that it's working and the performance is high. 80%, we automated about 80% of the claims, meaning all of these people that were actually building, that were actually classifying these long, sophisticated claims were actually let go. Why? Because now we have 8 or 7 models that work together to actually do exactly what they do. But when ChatGPT came out, the 12 team that I had became actually 3 people. Why? Because we didn't need these 7 models. Each one was doing a specific task. What we did is we replaced like 4 or 5 of them with actually 3.5, GPT 3.5. So all the classification, sentiment analysis was actually done by one single large language model. And it took us like few days. It was even more accurate. A few weeks. It was even more accurate. And we automated the job of even machine learning engineer. It was just funny, how things are advancing. So with LLM development, if you're building software on the top of LLM development, you don't need to be an expert in AI, in machine learning. You do not need a lot of training example, because guess what? We've modeled the entire language, like the entire language of human being, by compressing all the internet and everything that we have developed as humans into a 140 gigabyte, or sometimes it could be even bigger. You don't need a lot of training. You don't need to train a model to do this. And all you need to think about is how to write the perfect prompt. But if you're doing traditional machine learning, yes, you have to have ML expertise. You have to gather the training examples. You need to know to learn how to build a model. You need a lot of compute and think about like what's the loss function. I'll show you an example. With traditional machine learning, to do classification, you will need to build something called LSTM, which is an algorithm. So you will define all the layers, you'll do all of that, you'll go gather the data, you'll put the forward, and the back propagation. It's a very long, code that you have to write. And you have to understand coding, you have to know how to chunk the data, how to load the data, you have to understand PyTorch or TensorFlow to be able to do all of this. With LLM-based modeling, you don't need to do any of this. You're literally writing in English. You're saying, classify the model, review, and have either positive or negative, and you give it the sentence, the banana pudding was really tasty, and then the model will tell you what's the answer, whether it's positive or negative. What do you think, guys, the sentiment here? Is it positive or negative? The banana pudding was really tasty.
Positive.
Positive, right? For me to say, you're human, so you understand it, positive or negative. But for me, back in the days before the LLM world, I had to write all of this code. I have to show it so many examples. And guess what? It was not even 100% accurate. It was like sometimes 80%, depends on the quality of the data that I gather, all of that. But with LLM, someone else have trained a large language model for me, and all I have to do is to call that model with my English language to do the classification for me. Is that clear? You see the difference now? Yeah. Okay, alhamdulillah. Let's move on. And with traditional machine learning, this is the traditional pipeline. Yalla, go get the data, and this takes about 70% of your time, as we mentioned. Go get the data, do exploration, validation, data wrangling, split the data into train and text, do the modeling, do the model evaluation, package it. Now you have the model, right? And guess what? If something changed here, what do you need to do? Go and change the whole pipeline again. But with LLM, there's a large model that does a lot of tasks for you. Of course, there are certain problems that you still need to go to the traditional way, but I'm telling you, 85% of all the natural language models, vision models, even classification models have been automated for you. So you start as an engineer from here. You build your code, you interact with whatever, LLM out there, and you deploy to production. And here you have it. Nowadays, what you need to do is you define your use case, choose the best model, and teach you how to choose the best model. You try different things. You try prompting. If prompting is not working, then you fine tune the model for your need, and always make sure that you evaluate your answers. And evaluation is a big problem also in in LLM-based models and then integrate it into your system. There's so many companies that are out there that help you with this. If you're in the data labeling, you have Scale, Labelbox, a lot of startups that pop every day. If you go to this website, you will see like every one of these people are doing something. ChatGPT or GPT, OpenAI, they have the models ready for you. If you want to do prompt engineering, which help you craft the best models, the best prompt, you have so many companies that can help you with this. End-to-end platforms like Hugging Face, Google. What I'm saying is there's so many startups that help you actually with LLM development. But how do we do this? Now I have the LLM, I have that file. I want it to do the task for me. You have 4 ways of doing it, and the more you go to the right, the more complex it becomes. The easy one to do is prompt engineering. Craft the best prompt, and it gives you the answer. Wallah, I crafted the best prompt, but it doesn't give me the right answer. Then you need to involve the RAG system, and I'll explain what RAG is. Wallah, if RAG is not giving me the right answer, then I have to go a little bit deeper and more technical and do the what? The fine tuning on my data. If the fine tuning is still not giving me the answer, most likely that you're a big company and you need to start to pre-train from scratch, a model from scratch. And again, this will cost you millions of dollars, but the value you will get out of it will be huge. What companies are doing? They bring their data, they choose the best foundational model, and they go through this process as of now. And as I mentioned, since these models were trained on a lot of text, a lot of images, a lot of speech, a lot of data, unstructured signals, now you as a software engineer can adapt it to so many tasks, whether it's question answering, sentiment analysis, information extraction, image captioning, object recognition. You can do so much. And that adaptation sometimes requires a little bit of fine tuning, as you can see here, that will allow you to have these tasks within your apps. What is fine tuning? As we mentioned, you bring a data set of questions and answers in that field. So if it's financial data, question and answer within the financial data. If it's very specific ways of terms within your company, you bring that question and answer based on that. And you fine tune it. There's a lot of platforms nowadays, as I mentioned, that help you do the fine tuning, like Google, Vertex, or Bedrock from Amazon, or Hugging Face, or there's so many of them out there. And once you have it, now you will have this model. You just modified the model to serve the company's need. A friend of mine named Zach, he's one of the best, data engineers that I know. He thinks that all the data engineers' job will be the ones that will be crafting these instruction, question and answer data sets, because they will be able to tame and model any model to their need, to the company's need. A lot of discussion about, okay, should I go with open source or should I go with closed source like OpenAI or Gemini? It's a big research, but the research have shown that open source actually is catching up, sometimes outperform, these closed systems like Gemini and Google and OpenAI. They're actually catching up, and they're making when you fine tune it, it becomes even better in terms of performance. Okay, anybody familiar with RAG? Have anybody tried to implement RAG or use a RAG system? Okay, let me talk a little bit about RAG. طيب, نحن we said we have the LLM. The LLM is about a file. This file, for example, if you take Llama, the last knowledge it has, December 2024. Anything after December 2024, it was not captured or compressed in this type. How can I make the LLM understand what's happening nowadays? I have to give it new information. I have to give it new data. What happens is now the person would ask a question. This new data sits here. It goes and look for the best answer from this relevant documents. It brings it back to the LLM. So when you ask a question, who won the last match? If that's the last match is not in the LLM, it'll have to go, like we have to have a retrieval. Our RAG means retrieval, you retrieve, and then you augment your prompt with the new knowledge, and then you ask the LLM to generate. So retrieval, augmented generation. And then you ask the LLM to generate the answer for you. Clear? This is like a very smaller version of it, but again, you can click on the link here. It'll go in details on what RAG is. Tokenization is one of the very important concepts. I'm not going to go into this, but any text can go to tokens before it goes to the LLM, and LLMs only see numbers. As we said, it is actually numbers. It multiplies these numbers with the numbers that is inside that file using the transformer. But this is what happens. When we say a token is about 75 0.75 of a word. As you can see here, this text, when you tokenize it, it becomes like this. If it's a well-known English word, it takes it as one word. If it's something that it doesn't really like it's something new, like tokenize, see, two words. And if you are Arabi, like in Arabic, it's actually even worse. Tokenization becomes even more. So if you're using a model like Llama, like closed source like GPT-4 or others, they usually ask you, they charge you per token. They say every million token you pay $5. So this is what it means. Like the more you ask questions, these tokens will be expensive. In Arabi, it becomes even more expensive. Then in Arabi, it tokenize even more. Yani this is about like 20 tokens for this paragraph. If it was Arabi and you try to tokenize it, I would say it will be what? Probably 40 or 50 sometimes. So, and it depends on the language, basically. A lot of concepts of embeddings, no time. As I see, I'm a little bit over time. But again, before you get any answer, especially with the RAG system, you have to take it from the English space or whatever language space to the embedding space, which is basically the number space. If you haven't implemented a RAG, please use this notebook. You will use Gemma, which is one of the Google's free open source or open weights models. You will use a RAG system called or a RAG environment called Llama Index, or you can use LangChain, another system. And this Weaviate is actually a vector database. It's a new type of databases that stores these embeddings for you to go and learn. You will see a lot of benchmarks. Sometimes you hear that Llama is better than GPT-3, and sometimes recently Grok from Elon Musk from X came and it's better than Gemini. And at the end of the day, better is relative. Depends on what data sets it was benchmarked against. Sometimes they benchmark it on code, and what you care about in your company is code generation. Then that would be the best, the best model for you. So it depends on the task. So, but usually when they report across all of the knowledge and all of the tasks. Okay, before you start building any generative AI system or an application on the top of generative AI, first of all, you need to understand the capabilities. You need to stay updated with Gen AI, and I will advise you guys to go to deeplearning.ai. They have a magazine called The Batch. It's about 20 minutes, 15 minutes every Wednesday they release it. If you read that one, you'll be familiar with all the new things that come out. So you don't have to waste your time scouring the internet, especially if you're busy. But keep yourself updated because these things update by the week, actually by the day sometimes. Diverge and then converge. Brainstorm a lot of ideas before you start implementing them and see how viable they are. If you're working for a company or even for your project, see what's the value. Don't just implement the value, the model because it's the latest thing or the newest thing. No. Is it really important? Does it maximize my ROI, return of investment, the time that I'll be investing, the money that I'll be crunching, all of that? Is it really important? Does it have the biggest value? Do a lot of experimentation before you go. And when you build for scaling, meaning, yeah, you're working with experimental data, but then put in mind that this will go to like thousands and maybe hundreds of thousands of data sets that you'll be experimenting with. And if you don't know, like, find partners, find people that will help you, implement that AI capability. Like whether it's if you're in a project, find someone who has good understanding with with LLMs. If you're like in a company and your team is not familiar, just find another AI company that can help you get there. We talked about open source and closed source, so I'm not gonna go into this. But the next big thing, as we mentioned, is going to be what? It's going to be the multimodal, meaning it doesn't spit, it gets text and spit text. It gets text and spit video or audio or image. As we mentioned, now we have this file. You can adapt it to so many other things, and with Llama, so many models that came out recently. So go ahead and click on llama.com. You will see a lot of multimodal that can do multiple things, and you will see like these are very technical terms, like the context window, how much it can take, what language does it support, when was the knowledge cutoff. When I say knowledge cutoff, mean how much does it understand from the world. So this model 3.2, anything after December 2023, it doesn't. If you ask it, for example, who's the president of the United States, it will tell you Joe Biden. The reason is nothing has updated after this one, for example. But of course, when you build your systems, you need to be aware of this, so you know what is the latest one. How much data should I give it before I ask it to generate things? And again, a lot of things come out every day, so it's going to be very, very hard. But for multimodal, now you can go ahead, if you download this one, which is 3.2. It's a small model. Using a notebook, you can ask this question. You give it receipts, tamam? 1, 2, 3 receipts together, and you ask, question, what's the total charge of all of the receipts? And you pass the image to the model, and the model will do all. See, all of this generated is actually done by the model. Isn't that amazing? Yes or no? I need an answer.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's incredible, صح? طيب, what kind of applications can I build on the top of this model? طيب, another task. If you have a diagram, it can convert this diagram to a code. If you have a chart, it can convert it to a table. If you have an image, you upload an image, you take a picture, and now you know all the nutrition. It converts it to a JSON file, and then you can do so much downstream tasks. If you have a fridge, right? You take a picture and you can know, مثلا you build an app that does delivery. Now there's a camera mounted to the camera to the fridge, and the model can tell you what exactly is inside the fridge. So if something is less, it goes less, like you model. It solves math problems for your kids and whatever, it takes an image and tells you the problem. Interior design. And I'll show you some examples. For example, here, you take a picture, you give it a picture and you say, what is in the fridge? What kind of food can be made out of this fridge? So it starts thinking about recipes. يعني, okay, out of this fridge you can make مش عارف بيض, you can make فاصوليا, you can whatever, whatever. I'm a bad cook, so I will give you bad examples. But whatever is in here, the model will be able to kind of like has a vision, understands what's in the fridge, and starts suggesting things for you. So think about what you can do with this. Similarly here, remember that the model has a cutoff date. But how do you do that? There's something called function calling. And you're able to give more knowledge out of it. So you give it a picture of San Francisco Bridge where I live, and you say, where is this place? Or no, before you say, where is this place? You say, what's the weather in this place? Of course, the model will know this is in San Francisco, but it doesn't have the latest information about the weather since there's a knowledge cutoff. So it will go and call another function, let's say weather.com. It'll go and say, give me the weather for San Francisco. You bring that weather and you tell the model, the weather in San Francisco today is this, and give me the answer. So it'll give you the answer. There's something called Gemini Flash 2.0. Have you guys tried this or no? Have you tried Gemini Flash 2.0?
For me, not yet.
No.
Okay, let me scare you a little bit. And please don't share your personal data with it. So this is free. It's part of your Gmail. I'm over time, Dr. Muhammad. Is that okay?
Yeah, take your time. We are
Okay.
having a lot of interesting information.
Okay, so you can come here, go to stream real time, and share your screen. Okay, allow. Can you hear?
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Is there anything you'd like to talk about?
Yes. Can you please tell me what you see on my screen?
I can't see your screen. I do not have access to the internet or any other way to view external information.
Okay. Can you guys hear the conversation between me and the AI?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I can hear the conversation between you and the AI.
Okay. So I was explaining this table to my friends. Can you give me a summary of it?
I see a table titled One Pager on Llama 3 and 2. It appears to be comparing different versions of the Llama model. Would you like a summary of a specific row or column?
Yeah, I don't understand what is like I don't understand anything of it. Just give me a 5-year-old summary.
Okay, the table you're showing has information about different versions of a tool called Llama. It tells you things like when they came out and how much they can remember. Some versions can only speak English, but later versions can speak more languages. Some versions can also use tools. Does that make more sense?
Yeah, it does.
Great. Is there anything else I can help you with about the table?
Just give me 1 second. I'm trying to. Okay, you see this use case? Can you tell me more? What can I do with this model?
Okay, I see a slide titled Use Cases that has a picture of a refrigerator and some text that looks like code. It seems like the code is asking what food is in the fridge, and then it says 2 things could be made with that food, a salad and a fruit platter. Do you want to know more about what you could do with this type of model?
Yeah, what do you think other questions I can ask the model?
Sure, you could ask it what other types of food you can make, or maybe ask it for more detailed instructions about the salad or fruit platter. You could also ask what other use cases there are beyond just food.
Okay, so what about this graph? It's very complicated for me.
I see a diagram. Okay, I see a diagram titled Machine Learning Engineering with different connected elements. It looks like it's describing the process of building a machine learning model. Do you want to know more about a specific part of the process?
Thank you very much. Type, and I tried to stop him. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so what happened? Look, he was looking at my screen. Remember, we feed AI that model. It's just a model. It's just that, thing. We feed it, we can feed it text, we can feed it images, we can feed it screenshots, we can feed it stream. So I was just giving it stream of, and it sees every pixel. It's able to answer every question. And yes, this is just me interacting with it. What if I put it on automation? It becomes crazy. So like, do you understand what's going on here? So what if I give it the
Yes.
table and say, okay, this is what I actually did. I gave it a table and I say, the first 2 columns of the tables have first name and last name, and the first name and last name are actually not like not capital. Is there a way? Can you give me a regex that in Python that can, convert these 2 columns to first name and last name in capital? And it just spit it out for me here, which is crazy. So the AI now has an ability to see. It can see your image. It can analyze a video. It can analyze, text, image, and so on. Moving on. Let me just finalize here. So you guys heard about agents, and this is the year of agents. But what is an agent? Agent is basically 3 things. Number one, it's about the reasoning loop. You put your prompt here, what exactly you want the agent to do. You have a model, that file that we talked about, and you give it tools, مثلا weather, APIs, whatever. And now it reasons with the model, and it uses these external tools to achieve what? A goal. I put a lot of resources here. Go ahead and read about it. We don't have much time. But wallahi, akhi, if you're really interested in this and you want to really change the way you do things, read this book, the whole book. But you want to expand your knowledge about agents, the author of the book open source the 1 chapter about agents, so go ahead and click on it and read about it. It'll teach you how to build agents for yourself. Thank you. And any questions? Sorry, I was very quick. So much information you probably have heard. So many models are out there. Just wanted to show you what's possible and what we can do and what companies are actually doing nowadays. And if you have any questions, I'm open for questions maybe for the next 5 to 10 minutes before I bounce, inshallah.
Thank you, Dr. Ibrahim, for this informative session. Now, before we move to questions, can you give us examples on how are you using large language models in Corta, especially in the Arabic region?
So in Corta now, so in Corta is an end-to-end data management and analytics. So we have so I'll show you an example. Let me just show you an example. This will be easy for me to show you. Give me 1 second, please. Web Pro. Tell me if you are able to see my screen. Are you able to see my screen?
Until now, no.
No, not yet.
Not yet? طيب. How about now?
Yes.
Tell me if you can hear the sound.
Yes.
Can you hear the sound?
Yeah, we can hear you.
No, can you hear the sound of the video?
No.
Fleet management involves tracking
Yes.
Can you hear?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. So this is one of the use cases that we saw that in Corta. So we have a chat bot, we call it the Copilot, where the customer is able to type, you don't have to do data analytics and build dashboards. And no, you can ask in English, and we build this for you in the background. And this use case will show you how we do it. And we also do a lot of transformation using LLM. See how we are utilizing LLM as engineers for our customers so that our customers only ask English language. They don't have to code anything from scratch. If you have to hear the sound, if you don't hear the sound, let me know.
Fleet management involves tracking vehicle performance, managing driver behavior, and ensuring your entire fleet operates smoothly. Compliance with regulations keeps your fleet on the road, helps avoid costly fines, reduces risk, and ensures the safety of your drivers and the public. In Corta, with new generative AI capabilities, delivers business value by enabling fleet.
And this is what we do. In Corta, we bring data from multiple sources, and customers are able to build dashboards, business analytics, data science, machine learning. But see how we use generative AI on the top of these dashboards.
Managers to monitor compliance, control costs, and optimize operations. What if this dashboard still leaves us with some questions? Let's go ahead and use the Copilot. First, I wanted to know my average repair cost per vehicle. Perhaps some vehicles need to be retired from the fleet, or we should find a new maintenance vendor.
See, I just asked a question. What is the total average repair cost per vehicle? هو عنده fleet management. سأل سؤال بالإنجليزي يمكن تسأله بالعربي. You can ask it in Arabic, you can ask it in Chinese, doesn't matter. And then in Corta, in the back end, we have agents that go select the best data source, apply. See, we understand from the question, he needs total, so we need the sum, and we need the average. So we need to average the data first and then sum. Tamam? Repair cost, what does repair cost means? It means that I need to find where is the vehicle table, where is the cost table, joins them, bring the data back. Like if you were to write a SQL statement to do this, it will take you probably like 3, 4, or 5 minutes if you're an expert. But now you have a business user, مش عارف أي حاجة, he just asked a question and he got the answer back. Isn't that amazing?
Nice. I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
So is it like if you want to compare it with Tableau or Power BI or the other tools that we are currently using for building dashboards, can we, for example, how easy it is to use for someone who know nothing about, let's say, building dashboards or dealing with databases or stuff, and connected, especially if you have data coming from multiple resources and you're using multiple APIs to extract your data and stuff.
Yeah, it's for Incorta, it's very, very easy. And I'm not trying to sell Incorta here, but Incorta, if you are a company, for individuals, it's not, maybe Power BI is better for you. But for big companies who have like, we're talking about petabytes of data. يعني مثلا عندنا a company called Broadcom. Broadcom is one of our companies. Broadcom, it's $1 trillion company. It's one of the leading manufacturing companies for chips. All of their analytics, all of their data, everything data management, data ingestion, data analytics runs in Incorta. They have no Power BI, they have no Tableau, they have no Snowflake, they have no Databricks, nothing. Yani if you're a big company that has a lot of sources, petabytes of data, hundreds of databases, thousands of tables that needs to be joined, that's where we come in. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So for startups or small companies, maybe it's not that powerful.
It is. For
Yeah.
startups, like if the startup has multiple data sources that come from Oracle, SAP, yes. But if you have like 3-4 data sets and you want to visualize and ask some questions, you can use Power BI. Is actually much helpful for you. But we are end to end. We're the Tableau, we're the Databricks, the Snowflake, we're the Matillion, we're the we're everything. We're the whole stack. Right?
Nice.
That's why we're able to do generative AI better than anybody else, because we own the entire stack. We know where the data comes from. We know all the metadata. So when we ask the LLM, or when we build the LLM, actually, we do build some of our LLMs, we're able to do that. But please watch this and see how things are done. And this is just a regular user.
Vehicle. Perhaps some vehicles need to be retired from the fleet, or we should find a new maintenance vendor. Next, let's investigate how much repair costs I have paid each day for all vehicles. It looks like we have spent 10.
So he's asking a question that he cannot find in the dashboard. يعني في business analyst built this dashboard, right? The business user, he's not going to go and ask the business analyst. Well, business analyst has to talk to the data engineer to prepare the data for him. You don't need any of this now. You just ask the question. And because we have these agents in the back, they go fetch the right data, fetch the right, and build the visualization for you directly. Look what's going on here. So here, as you can see, the agents is thinking. So searching for the specific verified business view, generate data query, execute the query, because Incorta is a query engine, and generate the data summary for you.
It looks like we have spent $10,650. I find this visual particularly useful, so let's use the Copilot to create an interactive dashboard element. In this case, I'll simply add the keyword insight to my prompt and run. Now we have a chart we can add to the dashboard.
Now he found a question that was not in the, يعني he found a very important visualization that needs to be added to the dashboard. إيش عمل?
Once it's in the canvas, I can update the insight or edit the layout. We're not done yet. I see that one of our vehicles used a non-approved vendor for maintenance. I thought the vendor used here was qualified. Using Copilot, we can query unstructured data, like PDF.
We don't only work with structured data, we also work with unstructured data. يعني لو عندك, if you have thousands of PDFs and some information is in the PDF, and you want to compare between your tables and what is in the PDF, in this case, for example, regulations. يعني في policy معينة, it has to be followed. That's exactly what he's asking for.
In this case, we have a corpus of the State Fleet Management Handbook. Let's ask, what constitutes an approved vendor for maintenance? It appears they need.
So it gave me a summary. Now we know exactly who is an approved vendor. Not only that, it gives me a summary of all of this PDF file probably have like 200, 300 pages. I don't have to read this. I get the summary. Not only I get the summary at Incorta, I get the citation. شايف 1 and 2. So this summary comes from these two. I can go to the sources and check where exactly that summary came from. Not only that, it gives me something called factual consistency score, which means that how factual this answer, this summary to the original text. And it's another model that we run on the top between 0 and 1. Between 0 and 1. يعني if it's 0.9 or 0.99, then it means that it's very accurate.
proper insurance, and have the required licenses. I do have a reliable, non-approved vendor with quick turnarounds. Can we still use this non-approved vendor for quick, inexpensive fixes? Let's say under $300. Great. It looks like I can use them as long as the repair costs don't exceed $350. Now, I could have gone through each vehicle's repair history to determine.
Remember when we said you do also classification with LLMs? طيب أنا عندي table. I have the table. See, the LLM generated this compliant for me. And I'll show you how we do this. Is this based on this information? The agency name, the vehicle, some like the spending, the monthly mileage, all of that. Is it approved based on my policy or not? And you have a PDF file that has a policy. So the LLM is able to tell you, yes, it's approved or not approved. Is it compliant or not compliant? And I'll show, and you'll see now how is that done from the back end.
And whether it is compliant and rationalize why it is or is not. But Encorta intelligently enriched this data set to check compliance. In this data flow, you can see we are importing a simple data set outlining vehicle maintenance history. The magic takes place in the LLM tool. The first thing you might notice is that our LLM model is one that improved with RAG, which refers.
For us, we give you flexibility to choose the model you want, whether it's RAG, whether it's Llama, whether it's Gemini, and the system administrator get to pick for his company what are the best models that they want to do.
Refers to the State Fleet Handbook. With this context, the LLM can assess our prompt to determine whether the maintenance completed was compliant. And
شوف هنا طلع راح it classified. He run the prompt and say this guy is no. Not only that, it gives you the reason why it's not compliant, right? And this, for example, he runs it on like a 3,000 rows, but you can run it on 1,000,000 or even 1,000,000,000 rows. It's absolutely fine. All optimized for performance.
And why it was or was not. And there you have it. With the power of generative AI, Encorta can take away the most menial tasks and leave you with more time to focus on the strategic imperatives of your organization.
And this is just one single use case. We do a lot of other use cases, so hopefully this was clear. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Absolutely, Dr. Muhammad.
Any questions?
One question, please.
Yes, Mustafa, go ahead.
Now, if I want to build a traditional LLM, how big my data should be? If I want to fine-tune it.
Fine-tune it is easy. Well, fine-tune it, I would say at least 500 questions, question and answer, at least.
Can I build it with unstructured data? Let's say in PDF, I want to just collect information.
It has to be question and answer.
Like in JSON-L.
JSON, yes.
Okay.
And if you are using OpenAI, it's very easy. You can go to type OpenAI.
Assistant AI. OpenAI gives an assistant which I can fine tune it.
Yes.
With unstructured data. It's okay. I can give it a PDF and use that API to call it.
I mean, depends on the platform, but from a program. So what OpenAI does is they take that PDF, they convert it to JSON. They do all the heavy lifting for you. At the end of the day, as long as you get it in the right format, you can. But my advice, don't if I've tried from my experience, anything less than 500, it's not you won't see the results apparent in your model.
So do you recommend if my data is less than 500, use a traditional?
No, enrich it, add more. When you say traditional, what do you mean by traditional?
Where I download an open source and fine tune it.
Yeah. You can fine tune it with 100. You can fine tune it with 50. If you see the results that you want, alhamdulillah, that's good. If you don't see the results, then you have to enhance, to have more data. But from my understanding, my knowledge, for the 70B and even the 32B, 500 is a good number to start seeing an actual results from the fine tuning.
Thank you.
Good, Mustafa. You're welcome. Any other questions? And by the way, if this is too much for you and you think this is Don't worry. It's very easy. I put a lot of resources for you to go and read. Starts from deeplearning.ai. It's an amazing website. Andrew Ng is one of the leading, educators in the world. He started Google Brain, Baidu, and now he has landing.ai. I worked with him when we were working on the batch. Very nice person. And everything is free as of now. So it's 1 hour, spend an hour or 2 hours a week watching these videos. You will learn just like you made the effort to come and attend this session and understand. And little by little, you'll be able to understand. But wallahi, this is the future. If you don't jump on it now, it's gonna be too late later. Yeah, it's been 2 years and people are learning for the past 2 years. People who started early, they will have advantage over people who have not even done a single code, in this domain.
I have one question. As a company, do you feel safe to depend on like Llama and these models in building your product?
It's a layer. So we do a lot of things outside of the model. The model is like what, 5-10% of what we do. We use the model as a way of, it's a new interface, it's a new UI, صح? And instead of zaman, I give the customer the dashboard to build. Now, he can ask the question, but of course the LLM by itself is not enough. And we build the agents, we customize it for us. So in this sense, we're not dependent on Llama or DeepSeek tomorrow comes out with a better model, we'll use that. We feel like we're safe as long as these models do not reach AGI, which is general intelligence. Then what's the need for Ecorta if you can, upload your data set to the model and the model will solve all the problems for you?
So one more question. So RAG is a procedure that we can follow, or it's a platform?
No, RAG is a procedure. It's just RAG is a method, a way for us to bring the latest data to the models. That's it. You retrieve the latest data. So when the model does the reasoning, the model is able to reason with the latest data. Now, how do you bring the latest data? أنا عندي مثلا one of the customers, he has 10,000 PDF files. طيب, which chunk? تعرف انت ال LLM can take about, it has it has a window. It cannot take 6,000 PDF files. صح? It takes مثلا 1 PDF, 2 PDF files. More than this, it tells you, sorry, out of context. So how do you retrieve the right chunk for the LLM to do the reasoning?
Okay.
So it's a method, it's a way. And there are a lot of companies out there. They just do RAG.
Yes. So one last question from my side. So if we want to teach the students data science, and I will teach the data science course for the University of Jordan students this semester, which are the topics that you feel is the most important?
Definitely large language models. Teach them the ins and outs, like how this model is constructed, not for them to build ones, maybe if they can, why not, but for them to be able to use these ones. Of course, RAG, teach them about the framework, like I would say LangChain, Llama Index. These are very important framework. Just like when we used to teach, for example, for machine learning, scikit-learn and TensorFlow and PyTorch. These are very important things, very important topics. For data science in general, of course, everything about like data cleaning, modeling, but I see less and less of this now in the practical world.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because we rely on AI to do the cleaning, wrangling, and this stuff.
Exactly. So if you go back to someone and say, I'm going to teach you assembly language, they'll be like, yeah, it's good to know, but it's not what I'll be using in real world, right? Python probably would be much, much better for me.
Okay.
All
Any
right. Any other
questions
questions?
from?
Well, it was so happy to meet all of you. I'm so happy and honored to be among people who wants to learn. And again, Dr. Muhammad, at any time, there's an interesting topic that you want me to talk about, I'll be more than happy to jump. If you want me to drill down into one topic, I'll be also more than happy